Hey everyone, if you've been building worlds in VRChat for a while, this deck of cards might look a little familiar. I actually made this asset 6 years ago, and believe it or not, if you've ever seen a deck of cards in VRChat, there's a really good chance it was either this one or based on this one. It's probably my most widely used creation, and kind of wild to think about. Even though it's been kind of neglected over the past few years, the crazy thing is, it still works. Just drop it into your world, and it does exactly what you'd expect. Full deck shuffle, pick up, drop, reset, all networked, plug and play, ready, even today. You can grab cards individually, deal from a shuffled pile, move them around, and reset the whole deck. And yeah, it still runs without any weird setup steps or broken dependencies. We can even see here that the networking works just fine, as the 4 is still the 4 on our other client. Even though it's been kind of neglected over the past few years, from what I can tell, it still works. There is one bug I've found, which I'm going to be updating and fixing, but here's essentially how it works. You have a deck of cards that collide with everything but the player, and they are shuffled. We can prove that here in a minute. But if you want to reset the deck, you just double click the shuffler. And it does work best with hands, but even without, it's still usable. So let's say we want to prove it is actually shuffled. What we can do is just look at the ordering of our deck of cards, and we can tell by default they're all in the exact same spot, i.e. flat. So if we hit play and go back into our scene, we can see this position. Our position is going to basically demonstrate where in the deck the card is located. So we can see they are shuffled basically in different spots and not in any order. So the 2s are spread out, 3s are spread out, and so on and so forth, i.e. a shuffled deck of cards. So let's walk through what you can expect on setting this up inside your own VR project if you decide you want this from my Patreon. Because if you wanted to create this yourself, it's really just a combination of things we have already learned, as in an interact toggle, throwable objects, and basically putting materials onto the putting textures onto materials and materials onto objects. So if you want, let's say you want to change the designs, you would simply change the albedo texture of each material. And you can do that for the card back or the different cards themselves, however you want to do it, if you wanted to make it your own. And of course, this is networked. And here we can see, even in networked mode, everything still works as we would expect. Now, sometimes it does act a little weird like this, but these issues do generally resolve themselves. I also stuck this cube under it because, as you can see in the default test worlds, the collision on the plane is quite high. That's why my alternate character is floating there. So what would happen is the cards would fall through the world because they are spawning below the collider threshold. So we can fix that by just sticking something under the basically where the cards would fall. Now, this may or may not be the case in your world, but if it is, you can easily fix it by just simply adding a cube under it. Now, something else to note here is you can select any card in the deck, not just the top card, which is a little annoying, but it doesn't really cause an issue because they are shuffled, so you're going to be getting a random card no matter what. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at how we would import this if you were getting the file from the Patreon. So here we are in our test world, no deck of cards, never been implemented into this world. This is the one we've been following along with in our tutorial guide. So let's go ahead and look at what you would get. It comes with a README, and you actually don't need these two assets anymore. So when it gets repackaged and uploaded, it won't have these, but it will have the shuffled deck of cards V3 or higher and a README, which I need to update slightly. But let's go ahead and import our shuffled deck of cards. And we can import all of this as it is. So now we'll see an imports folder, our deck of cards, which contains all of our textures and materials, which is fantastic. We go to our prefabs, all, and just type in deck, we'll see a shuffled deck of cards. If you don't want that plain under it, you can simply get rid of it like that. Now, like I was saying, since it most likely will fall through this plane because of the default collision on the base world, we are just going to put a simple object under it, like you might have a table or something of that nature. I'm just going to child it to the deck of cards so I can easily reset the position, and it'll be directly under it, like so. Now, if we actually look at our README, because I think if we actually look at our README to see what my instructions would be, we have a little text to show what it does, and then what we need to do, which is add a custom layer. Easy enough. We go to Edit, Project Settings, Tags and Layers, and add a new one. We'll call this Cards. Now we need to go to our Physics, scroll down, and uncheck Player. So this is saying you want it to collide with everything. You want cards to basically have collision with everything but the player. That will create issues. Optionally, in my tutorial before, I suggested to undo the cards themselves. Now you can still do this, but I think it's actually better without this step. So we are going to remove that from the guide. Now what we need to do is actually change the layer of the cards to cards and hit yes, change children. Now if we actually go into our world, we can close our menu and see that it works. Now in play mode, like our other interact tutorial, it's really hard to throw things. It doesn't really work. So we can't test that without going to build and test, but we can see based on this that everything is being shuffled. As long as the Y value is slightly different, they are going to be in a different position, which is what we are interested in. And that's it. That's how easy this is to get to work in your world and to modify what the cards actually are in case you're doing a different card game. Let's say you wanted to do like, I don't know, Magic the Gathering decks. You could make pre-built decks and boom, there you go. Now I'm going to be re-releasing this version 3 with an updated guide, but I'm going to go ahead and update version 3 up to version 4 as I find bugs and think of different ways to do this, because this was done using various methods that it works, but I think we could do it better. And what I mean by that is basically the C# script still works great, but how I use some of the other things could be done a little more efficiently, like the actual shuffler and some of the other bits and bobs. Overall though, it still works, which is the most important thing. I'm just going to continue to clean it up, as this is an amazing asset. Thanks for sticking around, and thanks to everyone who's used or shared this over the years. I never expected this little project to become something that just stuck. But here we are. New tutorials and updates are on the way, so if you want to stay in the loop, make sure you're subscribed. And if you want to support future assets like this, you know where to find me. Appreciate you watching. See you in the next one.